There's a certain kind of woman who turns heads without trying. She walks into a room and doesn't need to announce herself. But suddenly, the energy shifts. No loud colors, no exaggerated gestures, no performance. And yet, she's unforgettable. You may not realize this yet, but you might be one of them. You might be carrying a presence, a quiet power, a depth that others feel, even when you don't fully see it yourself. This video is not about surface beauty. It's about truth. It's about 12 signs, subtle, psychological, energetic, that you're more attractive than you think. These signs don't show up in mirrors. They show up in how people respond to you, how they linger around your energy, how they open up to you, how they fear you, without knowing why. And make sure you stay until the end, because sign number 12, it's the one most people never notice in themselves. But it's the very thing that makes others feel magnetically pulled toward you. Let's begin with the very first sign. 1. People confide in you, instantly. You meet someone new, and within minutes, they're telling you things they haven't told anyone. They say things like, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never shared this with anyone before." Sound familiar? This is not random. Carl Jung believed that we each carry unconscious energy, something that others can feel, even if we're unaware of it. When someone opens up to you quickly, it's a reflection of the emotional safety your energy provides. You don't have to try to be warm or understanding. It's just who you are, and people feel that. They sense it. They come to you, not for answers, but for space, a space that doesn't judge, that doesn't rush, that simply holds. And that's rare, especially in a world that's loud, fast, performative. Your calm is an invitation to exhale. But here's where it gets even deeper. The fact that others feel safe with you doesn't always mean you feel seen. Sometimes, you're the one everyone leans on. But no one asks how you're doing, because you carry yourself so solidly, so quietly, so gracefully, that they assume you don't need anything. That's why this kind of attractiveness often goes unrecognized, even by you. It's not validated with compliments. It's not celebrated in public. It's felt, silently, deeply. And the ones who get it, really get it, they remember you, not because you demanded space, but because you held it, for them, for yourself, for something bigger. So if people are drawn to you, if they trust you too quickly, if your presence becomes a safe haven without explanation, that's not a coincidence. That's your power speaking louder than your words. 2. You hold eye contact, and it's not a game. You don't lock eyes to seduce. You don't do it to intimidate. You do it because you're present. And being fully present, especially in today's disconnected world, is magnetic. Most people flinch when someone truly looks at them. They fidget. They look away. They laugh nervously. But you stay there, calm, grounded. Your gaze says, "I see you. I'm here." And that kind of attention feels rare, even disarming. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." When you look at someone with that kind of self-possession, it reminds them of something they've lost, their own presence. And whether they realize it or not, they feel drawn to yours. 3. You say no, not with anger, but with clarity. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to justify. You simply state it, with calm, with certainty, and with zero guilt. That's what makes it powerful. Most people don't know how to handle a woman who doesn't explain herself. It confuses them. Sometimes it even threatens them. But to the right people, that's breathtaking, because a boundary isn't rejection. It's respect for yourself and for them. Carl Jung taught that integrity is the alignment between what you think, feel, and act. When you say no and mean it, you're not being cold. You're being whole. And wholeness is attractive. It's safe. It's rare. 4. You don't chase. You attract. You've stopped running after people, affection, or approval. You've learned that the right energy doesn't need to be forced. It simply flows. When someone pulls away, you don't panic. When someone plays games, you don't play back. When someone doesn't value your time, you remove access. Not out of punishment, but out of peace. This stillness in you. This sense of, I'll be okay no matter what. It's not arrogance. It's self-trust. It's emotional maturity. And you didn't just wake up with it. You earned it. Through disappointment. Through silence. Through choosing yourself when others didn't. That silent confidence is what people notice. They may not say it out loud, but it hits them. She doesn't need me. And that makes me want to be near her even more. Let's go deeper into the 4th sign, the one that quietly shifts the way people experience you. You don't chase, you attract. It's not just about dating or romance. It shows up in how you move through life. You don't seek out crowds. You don't beg for inclusion. You don't over-explain to be understood. You're not rude, you're rooted. You're not hard to get. You're just not easy to move. Your energy says, I know who I am. If you want access, show up right. People feel it. It's in the way you don't overreact to silence, the way you don't flinch when someone pulls away, the way you're comfortable being alone, not because you don't like company, but because your own company feels like home. That energy is rare, it's stabilizing, and it makes others question their own grounding. Carl Jung believed that individuals in deep alignment become a mirror, not just for love, but for truth. And sometimes, the truth you reflect back makes people uncomfortable, not because you're wrong, but because they're not ready to meet themselves. 5. You make people reflect, sometimes without saying anything. Your energy holds a kind of mirror. Not everyone enjoys looking into it. You've probably had people suddenly withdraw from you, not because you hurt them, but because being around you stirred something. Maybe it was clarity. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was a truth they weren't ready to face. And you noticed they couldn't look you in the eyes anymore. They couldn't stay light and surface level. With you, things feel deeper, more exposed. That's not your fault. That's your depth. And it's incredibly attractive. Not in a superficial way, but in a soul-level way. Because it shows you're not afraid of the real. And in a world full of filters, that's unforgettable. 6. You're often misunderstood. You've been called intense, too deep, too quiet, too much. But really, you're just clear. You don't perform. You don't fake connections. You'd rather have one real conversation than 1,000 empty exchanges. Some people call that intimidating. But that's because they're used to masks, and you don't wear one. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. So when you stand in your truth, it challenges those who've never met theirs. The ones who misunderstand you, let them. Because the ones who see you, really see you, won't want you to be anything less than what you are. 7. You've been through pain and didn't let it close your heart. You've known betrayal, rejection, silence from the ones you trusted most, and yet you're still open, still soft, still capable of love. That's not weakness. That's emotional strength. The easy way out would have been to build walls, to shut down, to numb. But you didn't. You let the pain shape you, not harden you. Carl Jung believed that embracing our wounds is part of the individuation process. That true wholeness doesn't come from pretending we're fine. It comes from owning our hurt and walking forward anyway. Your light isn't shiny because you've never been broken. It's shiny because you've been broken and rebuilt yourself with more honesty than before. That kind of quiet resilience, people feel it. They don't always know what they're sensing, but they sense it, and it draws them in. 8. You're deeply intuitive. You notice energy shifts before anyone else. You pick up on tone, tension, unspoken emotions. Someone says, "I'm fine," but you know they're not. You feel things before they're said. And while others are focused on words, you're listening to everything in between them. You might have felt crazy for this at times, like you're too sensitive or overthinking. But let's be clear, that's not overthinking. That's emotional intelligence, just in a language most people were never taught. Your ability to read a room, to adjust your energy, to protect your peace, it's a sign of depth, not dysfunction. And people often turn to you, not because you fix their problems, but because your presence just understands. And if you've made it this far into this message, you probably recognize this in yourself already. Not because someone else told you, but because deep down, you've always felt it. This is your mirror. 9. You no longer explain your worth. There was a time when you'd overgive, over-explain, overcompensate, just to be seen. But now you simply are. You've stopped arguing with people who don't value you. You've stopped performing for spaces that require you to shrink. You've stopped trying to be easier to love. Because here's what you've learned. If someone needs you to be less to feel more powerful, that's not love. That's control. And love, real love, doesn't ask you to shrink. It rises to meet you. So if you're hearing this and something inside you says, "This is me," you're not alone. You're not too much. And you're not imagining your depth. You're just remembering what you've always known, but finally feel safe enough to admit. Some videos speak to the mind, but a few speak to something older, something wiser, that's been waiting to be seen. And if this one found you now, maybe it's time. 10. You make peace feel magnetic. There's a kind of woman who doesn't just walk with grace, she radiates it. Not because her life is perfect, but because her inner world is aligned. She doesn't need chaos to feel alive. She doesn't start drama to feel important. She doesn't confuse attention with love. You've probably heard people say, "Being around you calms me." Or maybe they just linger longer. Stay quieter. Breathe deeper, because your energy doesn't ask for control. It offers relief. Carl Jung believed that inner integration, when all parts of you stop fighting each other, creates a kind of wholeness that others feel but can't describe. So that's you. You're not reactive. You're responsive. You don't match energy. You manage yours. You don't beg to be chosen. You choose yourself daily. And in a world of noise, your peace becomes not just rare, it becomes irresistible. 11. You own your contradictions. You're soft and strong, quiet and clear, loving, but not naive. You don't fit into a box, and you've stopped trying. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be one thing. You're both fire and stillness. You can listen for hours, or walk away in a second. You can nurture someone, and still hold your boundaries like steel. People are drawn to you because you're full. You've integrated your dark and light, your logic and emotion, your past and your power. That fullness is rare and breathtaking. Most try to be simple, to be liked. You've embraced being layered, to be real. 12. Your presence lingers, long after you leave. You've probably had people reach out after months of silence, or someone you barely spoke to remembers a sentence you once said. Why? Because you didn't just pass through their life. You imprinted something. You made them feel something deeper than usual. And even if they couldn't name it, they remembered it. That's real attractiveness. It's not how you look when you walk in. It's how people feel after you're gone. And that's something no mirror can show you. But your energy already does. So now, you know the 12 signs. 12 ways your presence speaks louder than your appearance. 12 reasons why people feel drawn to you, even when you don't understand why. But the deeper truth, most women don't see these signs in themselves because we're taught to measure attractiveness by standards that have nothing to do with energy. We're told it's about flawless skin, perfect angles, soft voices, smallness, obedience. So we spend years shrinking, years questioning, years wondering, am I enough? But what if you've been enough all along and just never knew how to see it? You see, true attraction doesn't come from performance. It doesn't require permission. It doesn't wait to be validated. It begins in the moments you reclaim yourself. When you choose to speak, even if your voice shakes. When you walk away from people who confuse your kindness with weakness. When you stop apologizing for your presence and start honoring your impact. That's the shift. Carl Jung taught that most of us live out the parts of ourselves we think are acceptable while burying the rest in the shadow. But when you bring those buried parts back into the light, the assertiveness, the rawness, the intuition, the power, you don't just become attractive, you become whole. And that wholeness, it's what people feel. It's what makes someone turn around after you walk by. Not because of your clothes, not because of your body, but because of your energy, your truth, brushing past theirs. You've likely spent years focused on how you look, but the most unforgettable parts of you were never physical. They were the way you made people feel, the way you showed up without needing approval, the way you held space without needing praise. And maybe, just maybe, it's time you saw that too. Because being attractive has never been about being flawless. It's always been about being real. You've likely walked through this world feeling both visible and invisible. Visible when others needed your light. Invisible when it came time for them to give something back. You've been the safe space, the one who listens, the one who sees deeply, but is rarely seen deeply in return. You've felt the pull to shrink, to soften your truths, to water yourself down, just to keep the peace. But there comes a moment, a quiet, piercing moment, when you stop. You stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself. And that, right there, is when everything begins to shift. Not in the way the world treats you, but in the way you treat you. Because when you start honoring your own energy, your own presence, your own depth, you no longer settle for anything or anyone who doesn't match it. You stop forcing connections. You stop explaining your heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. You stop trying to prove that your softness is strength, and you begin to trust the power of your own silence. Carl Jung said, "Solitude is not a lack of love, but its complement." And you've learned how to love yourself enough to enjoy your own company, to be alone, not lonely, to be silent, not silenced, to be whole, not dependent on anyone to complete you. This is the kind of presence people feel before they see you, the kind that enters the room before your body does, the kind that lingers in someone's memory long after you've left the room. And you don't create that through effort. You become that through healing, through boundaries, through truth, through walking away from anything that doesn't feel like home. So if you've ever felt too much, too emotional, too intense, maybe that wasn't the truth. Maybe you were simply too awake for people who were still asleep. And now, you don't dim your light. Now, you let it speak, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself, you were never here to be quiet. You were here to be real. Here's the insight I promised you in the beginning, the one most people miss, even in themselves. Real attractiveness doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from being remembered. It's not about how many people turn their heads when you walk in. It's about how many hearts you quietly shift just by being who you are. You don't need a spotlight. You are the light, steady, soft, and impossible to ignore. People may not tell you why they feel drawn to you. They may never admit how deeply your presence impacted them, but they'll feel it. They'll remember it, because you leave something behind, a feeling, a frequency, a truth. Carl Jung believed that we don't truly become ourselves until we make the unconscious conscious. And now, you're no longer walking blind. You've seen yourself. You've remembered your energy. You've reclaimed your quiet power. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. So now, I want to hear from you. Which one of these 12 signs made you stop and say, "That's me"? Drop it in the comments. You might be surprised how many others say the same. And if you're still carrying doubt, still searching for clarity, still wondering how to keep your energy clean and centered in a loud world, the playlists on your screen are your next step. There's one on feminine energy and self-worth, one on Carl Jung psychology for women, and one more, just for you, attraction and emotional magnetism, where we go even deeper. You've been seen here, and not just seen, recognized. So take what you need, rewatch what resonated, and whenever you're ready, come find yourself again, right here.